Hey, this is Jennifer again. Thank you for watching my latest speed painting video. This is my Surfer Girl over coral, and I got the photograph online. The photograph that I used as a reference was taken by Richard Kotch, and I asked permission before I painted it, and then again I asked permission before I posted this video on YouTube. But I just want to make sure you know Richard Kotch, very talented photographer, and I'm so blessed that he allowed me to use his photograph to make this beautiful painting. And I apologize again, I've still got a bit of a cold, but I'm going to push through this one. So my Surfer Girl paintings, I've received a few questions about what's inspired me to paint these. They're mostly inspired by my trip to Hawaii that I took several years ago. Now I've been painting for about 5 years on canvas. I've been surfing since my early to mid 20s, and I surf along the coast of Florida, New Smyrna or Daytona. Well, one year we took a trip to Hawaii, and it was just such an amazing place. We were in Oahu, and it was kind of like Orlando on the beach, but I still really enjoyed it. It was still a really cool adventure. But what got me more than anything was the surfing, the water. Let's see, first of all, I'll tell you the story. When I got to the beach and I went to rent my surfboard, the lady there, she asked me if I've ever surfed before, and I told her that yes, and I surf in Florida, and this is my first time to Hawaii. And she let me use her board, and I was like, oh my gosh, no, I can't do that. She's like, absolutely, use my board. So she rented me her board for the week, and I felt so blessed. I just could not believe that she would let me use her board. And it was kind of funny because it's not shore break like what we have here in Florida. The water or the waves are further out because they have reef breaks. And it was nice, it was calm. The waves were rolling. It looked like they were pretty easy to catch because the waves along the Florida shores, it's a lot of they kind of crash on top of you, and you have maybe a 3 to 5 second ride on some days, and it's a little frustrating. We don't get a lot of those nice, calm, rolling waves that just kind of pick you up and move you. On a longboard, you have to work a little extra hard. Anyway, so she let me use her board, and the first day I had to paddle out so far. It felt like I paddled out for miles, and I got out there and I was exhausted by the time I got out to a break. And then I probably only caught 2 waves that day because my arms were like jelly and I could barely move to paddle and catch the waves. So I came in, sat with my friends, and one of the guys we were with was like, oh my gosh, it looked like you paddled 10 miles today. And I'm like, well, I feel like I paddled 10 miles. The second day I was so sore that I could not even go out. I don't think I've ever been that sore from surfing before. And it's just because you have to paddle so far to even get to the break, much less paddling to catch the wave. So I was exhausted on day 2. And then day 3, I paddled back out, and it was absolutely the best surf day of my entire life. The water was crystal clear, which we don't get in New Smyrna, Daytona. I mean, rarely it'll be clear enough that you can see, but most of the time it's a little murky. But it was just so clear there. It was just gorgeous, and you could see into the water. I saw a sea turtle swimming next to me while I was paddling, and I met some really nice people out there, which was totally cool. And so here I go. I paddle out what was probably not a mile. It's probably more like a half a mile out to the break. And I paddle and I catch my first wave, and it's so much fun. It just picks me up. It's nice and smooth, smooth ride. And I realize, holy crap, I have to get off this, or I'm going to have to paddle at least a quarter mile to get back out again. So they were so good, you had to pull off the wave, or you were just going to be completely exhausted. So that was really nice. And that was a really good time. And of course, we got to see all the sights. We went to the North Shore, and it was so funny. So we went over to the North Shore. We saw some shops. It was a lot more green over there, less city. And we sat, and we're sitting there watching the waves. So this is in October, and this is when the waves are ginormous, right? So they were having a surf competition, but the day we went to the North Shore, it was canceled because the waves were so big that day. So we're sitting up near the road in like a park area watching. We're like, those waves aren't that big. You know, they just, from that distance, they did not look huge. And then we saw a little person. It was like, they were like a little ant on a giant hill. And we're like, oh my gosh, that is huge. And someone's still out there surfing. And then, you know, later that day we found out that the competition had basically been put on pause for that time. So that was pretty funny. And also, while we were in Hawaii, we drove past the pineapple farm, so we got to see the pineapples. And we went out to Waimea Bay and snorkeled. So we did the typical tourist thing. And I gotta be honest, you know, you'd think someone who surfs would love to snorkel, but I had a weird experience in high school, so it kind of makes me hyperventilate in certain circumstances. So here we are, we're snorkeling, seeing these beautiful tiny little fish with all the bright colors. You know, and I was never a diver. I didn't snorkel at home, so I had never done it before in anything other than a pool and a tank at Disney, which was what gave me my traumatic experience. So here we are, we're over coral and just looking at these beautiful fish. And then the people I was with, they wanted to go out deeper, and it felt like there was like an inch between my belly and the top of the coral. So I just could not swim over the coral to go out into deeper water to go snorkeling. And they had all done it before, so they went without me. But I was so happy just to sit there with my snorkel and my goggles and just look at the fish. It was adorable. I mean, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I can't wait to go back. So I've not been back since, but I'd love to go. And I'd love to take my children one day. So that's a goal. That's like a life goal, to get back out there with the family. Okay, so while we're on this part, I want to talk to you a little bit about painting hair. So painting hair it's fun. It's like one of my favorite things to paint. I don't know why, but I guess it's flowing. So I always do several layers, and I always start with the darkest layer first. I lay that color down. Then I go back in with like a medium tone and a wet brush. And then I'll go back over that with some dry brushing. If you don't know what dry brushing is, that's when you put a little bit of paint on your brush so that it's not super wet, it's almost dry, and you bring your brush through. And I keep nice smooth strokes. And as you can see in this picture, she's got the dark roots. Well, she did in the picture as well, that I did the painting from. So I was staying with that. I did end up changing the hair a little bit, because if you paint from photographs, sometimes the photograph, I've noticed, does not always translate to the painting, even if you're keeping it exactly. Like mine aren't meant to be a lifelike picture. I just kind of take it and use some natural colors and try to keep similar. I'll change the things, tweak the things that I want to change to put emphasis in certain areas, which I love about painting. And I feel like I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so like here I'm changing the hair because I felt like it looked a little more natural, the hairline. And anyway, so hair is a lot of fun, and you just keep putting layers and layers. It can take a while to do it because I like to let it dry, go back in and paint some more layers, bring in some highlights. Then I start bringing in highlights, and I do more lowlights, and I do more highlights, and I do more lowlights, and I'll do, usually I have about 4 to 5 different colors that I use in the hair, and there'll be some blonde, yellowy, browns, and I'll even bring in a little bit of like a orangey brown, because hair is not just, unless you dye it, it's not just blonde, it's not just brown, you have all the different colors in it. And then when I'm going back in with highlights and lowlights at the end, I use a thin brush like what you see there. Anyway, so that's the inspiration for my paintings, and I thought I'd share that with you today while we're watching this. So I'm going to cue the music, let you listen to that while I finish up. Now I apologize, it's kind of hard to see the brush strokes at the bottom of the video here, but you'll be able to see more here in just a few seconds. And I know there's a little spot in this clip where it slows down, I think. Still learning my video editing, and I hope you continue to follow along with me. I may do some tutorials later, but for right now, I think what I'm going to start doing is inviting people in to do a practice painting with me once a month. That way I get a little bit more practice when I'm not focused on my series, and perhaps you can pick up a few tools and some paints and practice with me, so I don't have to practice by myself all the time. Anyway, thank you so much for dealing with me and my cold. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video, and I hope you enjoy seeing how the painting changes, and how as you paint, you kind of change your mind about what you want it to look like. And at the very end, you'll see the final picture of the painting is actually different than what I showed you here, because I did add in some blue highlights, lowlights on her face. Because she's underwater, it gives her kind of a blue tint. I wanted to make sure I added that in, even though I don't show that in the video. So thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of the clip.